We have quite a remarkable group of people today assembled. They're going to make some presentations and commentary. And I'd like to introduce you to first, Elana. Say hello.
Hello, I'm Elana Freeland. I've written a few books on the relationship between geoengineering and synthetic biology that's happening now. I've known Clifford for a long time and have been involved in some of his work in the early phases, and immediately noticed very quickly that what he was doing in the late 90s and early 2000s was directly related to what we've been seeing the last 3 years.
Dr. Anna.
Hello, my name is Dr. Anna Maria Mihalcea. I'm an internal medicine physician with a PhD in pathology and an author. I've been working with an international team of experts to investigate the contents of the C19 vials, and I've also collaborated with Clifford Carnicom because I very early saw that there are correlations between what we see now in the live blood and his body of work of 30 years. So we are collaborating in some research together.
Dr. Nixon.
Hi, my name is David Nixon. I'm a family physician in Brisbane, Australia, and I've been looking at the COVID-19 vaccines, primarily the Pfizer vaccine, under the microscope for the last 7 or 8 months, and found some disturbing and otherwise interesting findings that I'm keen to present today.
Clifford, they're talking about you, so introduce yourself. 30 seconds.
My name is Clifford Carnicom. I'm the founder and president of the Carnicom Institute, a nonprofit organization that's been in existence about 25 years, and it's devoted to environmental and health research, and my record is primarily the written word that's available on the website carnicominstitute.org.
My name's Harry Glazer. I'm your host. And if you don't mind, let's start with Dr. Nixon.
So one of the things that I have found that's been really disturbing is similarities between the structures that are found in the vaccine and structures we have seen in the blood. So this first picture here is a photo of a sample of vaccine that's been lying quietly in a drawer for 2 months, and then I took it out to find that there is a number of these chip-like structures aligned with this bright filament, which looks, and this is just a quote from Klaus Schwab about what this could mean. And this is a similar structure that we found in a sample of an unvaccinated person's blood yesterday, which is very similar. This is another sample of vaccine that again is about 2 months old and demonstrates a ribbon or wire-like structure which is associated with a number of chip-like structures. And again, we found similar structures to that within the blood of unvaccinated patients. I've got a few examples of this. A close-up of 400 times using a dark field microscope showing a translucent structure with rolled edges, very similar and reminiscent of the same structures or similar structures that were found in the vaccine at the same magnification. This is a similar structure, translucent with rolled edges. And a close-up of that, which is also the same as the picture in my background. So we've got red cells here and a couple of white cells. This is a bubble, but this shows a close-up similar to the other one that I showed. We've got this translucent structure with rolled edges. This is another large ribbon-like structure that we've found in the blood and very similar to structures that were seen in the vaccine. Just wanted to make the point that these ribbon-like structures do change. This was taken and shown on a TV show that I was involved in, and this is the same area a matter of days later, where we can see that this ribbon-like structure is actually appears to have inserted itself in this chipper-like structure, and it's obviously become quite elongated. The other thing to note is that there appears to be some utilization of materials adjacent to where the structure has formed. So I might just leave that at that point, and pass it on to my colleagues.
Well,
Thank you, David.
I have a question. In that last slide where you showed the elongation of that ribbon-like structure,
Yes.
that looked like, and I'm quite ignorant of these things, but that looked like what is called telephoresis. Is it possible that that was graphene oxide that is somehow self-replicating and forming these long structures? Did you have any idea on that?
There have been reports that have shown that these ribbon-like structures have Raman spectrographic evidence of they are analogous to graphene, but I haven't tested these structures myself.
Okay.
We know that these, what we call filaments, are almost exactly in appearance to what Carnicom Clifford has been seeing for many years. Dr. Anna, would you like to proceed?
So this is what I've also seen in unvaccinated blood, and I have been sounding the alarm to the unvaccinated because many of them thought they were safe. And similar to the work of Dr. David Nixon, which, by the way, I'm in the United States, in Australia, and we're corroborating each other's findings. Absolutely similar structures, same issues with rouleau formation, which severely impairs oxygen delivery. And then you have a response of these white blood cells that are endeavoring to eat up these fibers. In the background, you see significant signs of fibrin and acidity, which eventually leads to microclotting. And so what is interesting to note is that there were over 26 teams worldwide who looked at the vial contents, and many of them did not find RNA. So there were vials that had no nitrogen or phosphorus in them. And that means no molecule of life, no RNA, no DNA, no proteins. This is Daniel Lagasse, Steve Kirsch, Dr. McKern, as well as the European Medicine Agency. And there were DNA and protein impurities and many different metals of toxic etiology, like radioactive cesium, barium, iron, chromium, titanium, large structures like we're seeing in the blood now. Different forms of graphene are possible. The reason why this question is so challenging is nobody has actually analyzed the ribbons. The vials themselves have been analyzed with mass spectroscopy. There have been carbon peaks, and graphene is made out of a carbon monolayer at a nano level. So if there is carbon found, you cannot rule out graphene, but it hasn't been conclusively proven. And the question that Clifford and I have been working on is to really analyze what are these ribbons, because there are certain commonalities that are certainly of interest. I just wanted to show, this is the heavy metals test that I do in my office, and there's a lot of geoengineering projects going on. We're being sprayed with toxic heavy metals as well as synthetic biology, as Elana said. And you can see here extremely toxic level of aluminum, barium. We have lead. We even have uranium. We have things like tungsten, which the weapons expert Mark Steele discusses is really utilized as a weapon. And all of the metals are part of a satellite reconnaissance system for humanity, for facial recognition. So there's a comparison between what Clifford calls cross-domain bacteria. Many people might have heard the term Morgellon, so he has retermed that because he said that in his 30 years of research, these fibers have similar features to all three domains of life: archaea, eukaryotes, and bacteria. He has found some findings that could indicate polyvinyl alcohol, which is a hydrogel, as a component, as well as metals. There are others who have found, and we're speculating quantum dot technology because of the colors of the fibers. Certainly conductive metals have been found. There's self-assembly involved. Nanotechnology, there are people who have found crystal-like features that are octahedral. Slightly different than what David Nixon has found, but still similar. And the purpose is for biosensing, as some research are saying. Again, Clifford may not agree, but this is just the body of work that's been composed also by other researchers. And so in the shots, we also have hydrogel, which is the polyethylene glycol. For Moderna, it's SM-102, which is self-assembling. It's really the lipid nanoparticle encapsulation that supposedly contains mRNA. But our colleague, Dr. Szymon Janowicz, has found that this is where the nanostructures in the technology grows out of. We have quantum dot technology, semiconductive metal self-assembly, and this is also for biosensing. So this is the filament analysis of Clifford Carnicom of these filaments, and you see a very high level of aluminum and barium, as well as other metals. And what was interesting in regards to the comparison for me as a clinician, it was important to see, this is what I see in my office in unvaccinated blood. This is a microscopic image of Mike Adams' findings. It's microscopy of a cadaver blood clot from a vaccinated individual, and you can see the similarity. And then this is a structure from Clifford Carnicom. This was a recent study that was basically a repeat from experimentation last year, where we wrote a six-volume paper, and one of the aspects was unvaccinated blood that was exposed to a low-level electrical current. He repeated this recently at a current amplitude 1,000 times smaller. There was just 10 microamps. And these kinds of structures were found with particularly this bead-like structure that in his understanding is consistent with cross-domain bacteria growth. So what is interesting about this, again, to me, in comparison, as you can see, there's a very extensive filament network. Number one, the question of shedding and what is shedding, and the fact that the unvaccinated aren't safe, that something has happened to humanity's blood. And then the comparison to what is in the C19 shots, because La Quinta Columna heated a drop of Pfizer vaccine content. It's not a vaccine, it's a bioweapon. And you can see these structures, filamental structures, are very similar. This right here is an image of the cross-domain bacteria that developed via Clifford Carnicom's work in June of 2014. Again, you see the similar structure. And then this is what I compared it with. So this is Clifford's work. This is Szymon Janowicz, who was one of the people who had a vial directly after thawing. They have to be kept at extremely cold temperature, and looked at it under the microscope. And out of the liposomes, these bead-like structures started growing in these filaments, and you can also see them here. And so this is an image from the literature of responsive hydrogel filaments and how they're growing. So I just wanted to share a comparison by us endeavoring to understand what are we looking at. Many researchers, particularly doctors, are calling this stuff graphene oxide. I tend to call it more hydrogel, because this is more in line with the transhumanist agenda of soft robotics. Hydrogel has been shown to create microchips as well as semiconducting material. This was very researched by Clifford that we did jointly in regards to vaccinated and unvaccinated blood. And Clifford has done IR spectroscopy for 30 years. IR spectroscopy is an analytical technique that might give some identification of chemical substances in terms of their functional groups. And so what was very interesting was that he has a library of over 2,000 samples over 30 years of these signatures. This is a spectroscopy curve of an unvaccinated sample. And I just want you to look at what it looked like as a curve. And this is someone who's had what's called severe COVID. And by the way, I do not believe that COVID is a virus. I believe that it was a synthetic biology toxin that is really those ribbon-like structures. and these peaks look completely different. So when he analyzed it in the mild to moderate COVID history group, they had very similar peaks, but in the more severe illness group, there was an aromatic carbon-hydrogen bond that was pretty specific, and that also appeared in the vaccinated group. And what was also interesting was that the vaccinated blood samples had some new signatures that were previously not seen and that were not in common with the unvaccinated. And so at this point, there might be some chemical differences. And Clifford had explained to me that the aromatic carbon-hydrogen bonds are certainly signatures that, to him, make the question of a hydrogel more plausible. He also did some findings on some research on blood conductivity. So blood samples of 9 individuals, vaccinated and unvaccinated, were analyzed, and it was shown that the blood conductivity is in samples up to 50% decrease compared to historical norms. This is very early research, and at this point, it's challenging to come up with anything conclusive. Obviously, we need much larger sample sizes, more sophisticated equipment, but it is an attempt to answer these questions in regards to what is this that we've seen in the vials and what are we seeing in the blood. Clearly, humanity's blood is being changed. These are images from my office. I do also live blood analysis. I have the same microscope as my dear colleague, Dr. David Nixon, and you can see this extensive rouleau formation. So this is somebody who just had quote unquote COVID, and this is what I find that it is. And you can see that this ribbon-like structure is 1,000 times larger than a red blood cell, plus these highly abnormal finding that also lead to a hypocoagulable state. Same thing, this is long COVID. It looks exactly the same. These ribbon-like structures with this abnormal rouleau formation. These structures are huge, and they cause all kinds of problems with acidity and accelerated aging. These are further findings from my office. Again, extreme microclotting. So microclotting is what I call this stuff here, where fibrin is aggregated. And if you think about that artery, a small capillary is about as big as a red blood cell. This is really a concern when you have this much stuff floating around, interfering with blood flow. And this is just, I want to end on a note of hope. So I'm a chelation practitioner. EDTA has been one of the antidotes found in the research patents by Karen Kingston to help dissolve the hydrogel, also pull out the metals and work against graphene. This is before 2-EDTA chelation, and then you can see here that the blood is cleared, the rouleau is dissolved, and no structures were found. So this is what I had to share, and I want to invite Clifford Carnicom, just because he did all of the analysis on the infrared spectroscopy, the blood conductivity. He has very different views. Obviously, we are doctors, and he has seen this from his 30 years of research. But the context that he provides, I think, is very important for all of us clinicians to take into account, and to look at how can this help us answer some of our most pressing questions, because we are looking for antidotes. If we want to find solution for this very challenging situation for humanity, we must first identify what is it exactly chemically that we're dealing with.
Clifford, why don't you make some comments then at this point about what's been said?
Well, my comments are fairly brief, but at this point, first of all, I appreciate the combined efforts that are taking place here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Comments are fairly brief in general, I suppose. But the first thing I think that I'd like to do is I think that it's going to be helpful in our future if we establish a context in which we would anticipate and expect to work. And obviously, I have let's say, an objective of trying to extend that time framework over what's happening in our current world. And I'll say this at the beginning. We have something that's been now called geoengineering. We have this phenomenon we call geoengineering, and it often has a certain perception by many of us as to what it is and what it's about. And we also often view it as something sort of distant in the past. I see 3 main sort of arenas of history that we need to combined together in terms of where we're going. We can go ahead and put out that term geoengineering, but I'm going to correct that term. I'll come back and I'll correct that term. Let's put out the term geoengineering. I want to introduce the term bioengineering on equal par and on equal time footing with geoengineering, and that's going to be a change. And then the last era will be the COVID era that we're in. This geoengineering aspect basically needs to be completely rewritten in terms of what it really is. It has been presented as a theme that somehow is modifying just what you call geophysical aspects of the Earth. That is simply not the case. I have given 2 presentations over the last 2 decades, and I made an effort, I made an attempt to try and rephrase that. I can't say it's as broad spread and accepted as widely as I think it needs to, but I called the presentation geoengineering and bioengineering as a sub-comment of the unmistakable link. Geoengineering, from my position, needs to be completely differently perceived, not primarily as something even outside the Earth and a geophysical thing, but actually needs to be viewed equally on par, if not more so, the aspect of bioengineering from the very beginning. And the military implications of the geoengineering are much stronger than anything geophysical. We can have those debates later, but the first thing I'd like to do is do not exclude the term geoengineering as something separate, something in the past that pertains primarily to the Earth and its processes, but instead adopt a platform that began over 30 years ago of modifying the biology of this Earth. This would be one of the first things I'd like to do. And then I think what we need to do is when we look at information and we look at data, we need to look at all the information that has spanned those 2.5 to 3 decades, because I don't feel at all that we're in the dark about what it is we need to look at and what we anticipate that we might see. I think we have abundant information. I do not think, same as I had someplace I wanted to do a documentary on the health condition, I don't think that things are the mystery level that they are often presented to be. The second comment would be, I think we're very much on the right track, that we sense and we know there is a problem. And there's a couple of very, to me, straightforward objectives that are now before us. And Dr. Ann and I are probably working on these the most aggressively together than I know of. And that is a very simple question is now we already have a long history, actually, of what's going on in the blood. And I do mean to the chemical level. We have a great deal of information. But now we have a question that I have become involved in, sort of in a resurgence of my work, because I am also curious, always have been. I want to know, are there identifiable differences or level of coincidence between the state of the blood, what I call post-COVID, roughly 3.5 years ago forward, versus the 25 years of history? Establish whether or not there is an identifiable difference in the blood. There's already a history of differences. All we have to do now is compare 3 years to 25 and ask, are we in the same track? I would contend that we are likely in very much the same arena. The second thing is what's very clear and obvious. These filaments, they do not need to remain a mystery at all. The current situation is those that are witnessing and identifying and seeing filaments in what I'll call the post-COVID last 3 years, that era. Those filaments, you got to do 2 things. You got to isolate them. You can either isolate them in sufficient numbers, but you need to culture them. You need to identify them, and you need to produce them in a controlled environment. And then you need to begin subjecting them to the same type of analysis that can easily be more advanced than what I've done, but certainly at least do similar analyses to those that I have done and establish a level of coincidence or difference. I do not think this is any kind of mystery. I do not think that we have the option to continue viewing them in some kind of a nebulous light. I think our job is to look for the specific differences and or coincidence that exists. As just one stepping stone, one out of literally probably 300 examples. One stepping stone would be the paper series that was just most recently written, the 6-set series that Dr. Anna refers to. Number 4 in that series is devoted exclusively to identifying the chemical constitution of the changes that took place in blood, which show, once again, the existence of this filament, again, not nebulous to me, shows that analysis was done on the biology of the blood after transformation to a primarily filament protein state. And the same type of analyses were done that Dr. and I are already speaking of. That was actually done much more exhaustively than the recent work. That was the electrochemical analysis of at the elemental level, what was going on. That also had NIR spectroscopy. So I'm trying to make the point here that, first, extend our base is what to work. We've got a 25-year history, quite a library. I don't claim to have all the information. I was very restricted in what I can do. But we certainly have a library, and we have something. When you just simply look at it, Harry and I last night, I think I put in 3 words on the search engine. I put up Carnicom Institute and I put blood. I also ran another search. I put Carnicom Institute and filament. There are scores and scores of photographs that you can look for yourself. Some of them are up to 18K and 18,000 in terms of power. There is no doubt about what the structure and what the nature of this filament is. So, that's my tirade in terms of, I think, listen, we know what we need to do. Let's do the work, and talk is even cheaper than it needs to be, basically, right now. And Dr. Ann and I are making some very specific steps, and I haven't had the opportunity or pleasure working with Dr. Nixon yet, but I'm about the specifics because we don't have time. You don't have another 20 years to figure out what's happened. Some of us have been trying to warn for 25 to 30 years, and I don't want to swear here, but we are not in a good state of affairs. We are paying for our failures at this time. We are paying for our failures in addressing what has been openly presented and pointed out as being a very serious need on a global level to the human race. And thank you very much for that time. I do appreciate it.
Elana?
I love it, Clifford. Thank you very much. No, I'm completely. I see that what happened all those years ago is connected to what's going on right now. And I'm so glad that Clifford has encountered Dr. Anna and David Nixon in order to really solidify those connections, no matter what the rest of the world is saying, or the medical profession, or this or that. There are so many things to just build those solid connections between what happened in the past and how it has been brought forward into what we're looking at now.
Any final comments, Dr. Nixon?
Certainly a privilege to be involved with Clifford and Elana and getting a historical perspective on what I've come to see in the last 12 months. I'm very much a newcomer to this, and I appreciate the work that's gone before.
Dr. Anna, any final comments?
Yes, I want to commend Clifford for his decades of work that is phenomenal. And when I came across it and I really started looking into it, it was very clear to me of its monumental importance to what is going on now and to understand the situation. And so I've been referring a lot about to it. And then his meticulous way, when I get on the phone with him, I mean, we'll talk like 2.5 hours and he'll set me straight. Don't say this. No, it's not like that. And it's like, he's such a meticulous researcher, so impeccable in his procedures and in his endeavoring to bring forward truth, that it's really an honor to work with him and for me to be a spokesperson for explaining to people what has happened to our world, because most of us have been asleep at the steering wheel while Elana and Clifford have been talking and sounding the alarm clock. I'm like David. I didn't even know what geoengineering was, I have to ignorantly say, because my book was, my nose was in books and taking care of patients. And now I realize how important it is to become aware of the broader world that we live in, and that this war is occurring on so many different levels. And we need passionate, enthusiastic, really, really impeccable people like Clifford Carnicom to help, get some answers, who clearly says, he said to me, Dr. Anna, you cannot call this graphene. You cannot call this hydrogel. You have to do the analysis. And this is really what I want to tell our fellow scientists around the world. Instead of criticizing us or questioning our work, please repeat the analysis. They're actually exceedingly simple. And see for yourself, just like I bought a microscope when I saw what David Nixon did. And once I looked for myself, my life was changed, my outlook was changed, my research was changed. So this is really a plea to fellow scientists and researchers around the world to take a look at this body of work. And, we as physicians, Dr. David Nixon and myself, we stand behind this work and we appreciate it. And we want to invite other doctors as well as scientists to take a look at this and how this can help us answer the questions of this time. And humanity is in a perilous state. We must do it straight away. Thank you.
Fantastic. I'll just end by saying maybe just a quick summary. Clifford looked at the environment and the stuff that was being sprayed, and he found this filament, among other things. Then he looks in the blood and he finds and cultures the blood. That's mainly how he found and finds this filament. Dr. Nixon looks into the vials and finds this filament. He then looks into some blood, finds the filaments. Anna, you've done extensive work, and one of the few doctors that's actually looking at people's blood and finding the filaments. And Clifford has 25 years of research about what these filaments are, and also the lowest common denominator item that he believes is creating this problem, which he called the cross-domain bacteria, because as you pointed out, Anna, it represents the three domains of life, characteristics of the three domains of life. He called it bacteria because of its coccus shape, like a coccus bacteria. So that's the reason he's named it that. And he believes that that is really the root of all of this. That's the root of the filament production cell. But the bottom line is he has years of research that has incredible amounts of data using many different technologies, not just electrochemistry, not just infrared spectrometry, that now we can use to specifically analyze the filaments we're seeing now and what their relationship is or identity is to what he has been looking at for 25 years. And what I can say is every time I see pictures of these filaments, I go, hey, those are the Clifford Carnicom filaments, right? So I can't thank you so much for what everybody's doing. And I guess we'll end it right now. And I very much appreciate you coming from all around the world to participate in this conference. Okay, so I just like to do a little addendum to the wonderful conversation we just had. And I want to start off by this definition of hydrogels. And it's from this book, Polymers in Biology and Medicine. Hydrogels are three-dimensional network structures able to imbibe large amounts of water. Hydrogels do not typically dissolve due to chemical or physical crosslinks and or chain entanglements. They exist naturally in the form of polymer networks such as collagen or gelatin, or can be made synthetically. Very important. Environmentally sensitive hydrogels can serve a wide variety of applications because of their ability to respond to environmental changes. Okay, let's just look at this. Analytes and biomarkers include glucose, proteins, and DNA also elicit hydrogel responses. Okay, so some very fundamental things that our body has, glucose, proteins, and DNA, elicit hydrogel responses. Because of such a wide variety of response triggers, hydrogels can be incorporated into sensors or actuators, or can be utilized in controlled drug delivery systems, biosensors, tissue engineering scaffolds, artificial organs, wound healing bandages, physiological membranes, contact lenses, and microfluidic valves. An amazing way to get into the body. Now I would like to talk about a Google search, and this search is Carnicom Institute filaments. I'm using DuckDuckGo, and let's take a look at what we see. Oh gosh, look at all these pictures of filaments. And also lots of other details that we didn't quite see in some of the other screenshots from Dr. Nixon, Dr. Anna, like these wonderful little buds, a close-up of them with these CDBs in the side of them, okay? How about some of these filament structures? Look familiar? How about this one? Look familiar? Right. So when we take a look, when Clifford says, it's no mystery to me, how about this one here? It's no mystery to me about these filaments from just appearance alone, okay? There is gigantic similarity, which would suggest to us, hey, let's find out if they're identical or how similar they are. And Clifford has all of this information, this catalog of results that could now be cross-referenced with the filaments that are being seen today in vials, in people's blood. Very serious problem. Clifford rarely saw filaments in people's blood. Now they're seeing them regularly. And also there's a suggestion that these big clots that these guys are finding, these embalmers are finding, and morticians are finding, have these types of filaments also. Okay? So, and a key here, when you look really closely, you see these CDBs, which we've talked about. This is a erythrocyte, a blood cell. These little things right here are submicron sized. So they are like nano size, maybe 300 nanos or 0.5, 0.3 microns, right? This is what has been found in lots of people's blood. And if you look in these nodules and you look inside these filaments, you'll find these. In fact, Clifford is convinced that it is these things, these what he called cross-domain bacteria, cross-domain organisms, other people call them that, is what's responsible for this filament production. Okay? That needs to be verified. Because if we can interfere with this stuff and the proteins that it generates, that then generates these structures, we can stop this thing. Okay? So let me just end up by showing something else. One of the 6 papers that we talk about, it's called Blood Alterations 1. You can get this on the Carnicom Institute website, carnicominstitute.org website, and it's right on the front page. There's a list of this stuff. Okay? This is what normal blood looks like. This is what abnormal blood looks like. And you've seen from Dr. Anna and also Dr. Nixon, what they call roulet, but there's lots of different types of these kind of coagulation that hematologists talk about. Roulet is one of them, okay? This is many pictures like this you can see. So this coagulation, and this is another person's blood with lots of misshapes and even more distortions, okay? But I guarantee you, if you look at some people's blood today, you'll see stuff like this. Okay, so there is the whole filament research that's there, the whole blood coagulation research that's there. 2 phenomena that are the predominant phenomena that are being talked about, okay, by people that actually care and are looking. Dr. Anna, Dr. Nixon, and other people that are associated with them. This is the legacy that Clifford talks about. That's right there on a silver platter to be compared with the findings that people are seeing today. Indicates this is not a new phenomenon, but an extension. The COVID era is an extension in some way of what's been going on for 25 to 30 years.